Are you in here, Jason? Or is everybody in here? Are they coming in here if they want to hear it? Are you in here, Jason? Or is everybody in here? Are they coming in here if they want to hear it? Are you in here, Jason? Or is everybody in here? Are they coming in here if they want to hear it? What's this? All right. So here's where we're at. I'll give you guys the gist. What do you want to know? You want to know? I'll give you the okay. I'll just give you the rundown of, I guess, that where they're at, how it started. So I'll do this. It'd be easier if I could do this with circles for you guys on the map. Do this. All right. This little circle is going to be your guide, their journey, where they started, what they're doing. So, let me get a drink. They started here in Altenheim. So first of all, this is put in perspective where you guys were at in your campaign. Here's Housefjord. You guys started there in yours. And you guys' timeline is the same exact timeline. You guys are in 3050 ARD as well as they are. The general history of the world is this. This is my timeline that I have. So BRD, like I was saying with them, there's the Dark Collar Empire, which is what starts civilized people started being ruled early on, but it was really after Raldad Darkcollar, which is a human, that civilizations ran systems based on knowledge, honor. They started putting laws in place. This is more of like, if you look at traditional history, this is like the inception of like empires. Like if we look back at our history, for example, we look at Mesopotamia as like the cradle of civilization, but you look at like the big few generations or empires that started off, like Egypt. You look at other places like in Europe, but primarily if you look at the rise of Mesopotamia, the rise of real civilization, you can follow that from the Sumerians up to like the Egyptian empires. Similar with the way I've done mine. There's something called the impact. So there's two meteors that hit the planet that seed it with life, and then you have what's called the emergence. So this is the first. Obviously, this is day one. This is the inception of the planet itself. This planet was seeded by gods, and life was delivered by these meteors. Water and everything else began from that. And then you have the Dark Collar Empires. Basically, these are warlords. They don't really think about Rome before Rome was actually Rome. Rome traditionally started as like a small village that was ran by chiefs, chieftains. But it's similar in this. Raldad Darkcollar is the last Darkcollar that dies, and then the humans themselves begin to make these this is when the first proto-kingdom is created. So in 2250, so it takes about 2,250 years, roughly, to get the first civilized proto-intelligent kingdom started. And when I mean that by that is that you see constructive work together, buildings, laws, um, systems in place to gain knowledge, like schools and other things like that. This is when you start seeing a lot of empire versus empire battles. Raldad dies, but his seed follows, which is Murkath. His reign, he's the 4 times the great grandson to Raldad. He's made king of Alstenburg, which is, you guys kind of heard in your campaign, but that's the capital of Etheris. He's a relatively good leader, but he has plans to expand the kingdom going south, which was considered wildly unpopular to most people since they were kind of happy where they were at. This starts like a chain of crusades. So you see the Murkath Crusades happen for about 30 years. And then in 2510, you see the official fall of that empire, and the rise of what becomes democracy. So you see people that are voted in. It's not really, you can look at it this way, like Rome says it was democracy, but it really wasn't. I mean, people will fudge the numbers or vote in people who they like more than others. That's kind of how it goes. The Dark Collar Empire falls, and with that, now you see a boom in civilization. You see the humans start migrating away from Etheris to other continents. So they go to Chronostein. Chronostein is this large continent here, which is just west of the Ramados Gulf. It's primarily gnomes. This is, when you talk about technological advancements, this is it. These guys are the big ones. These guys in the current timeline fly around like zeppelins and other things like that. Super sophisticated, well organized. They tend to stay out of wars because people don't see, like enemies don't see that they could take them on in a battle due to their advancements. But they meet them in like 2570-ish. Then you have the War of the Fire Giants that we were talking about in this campaign tonight. They're kind of discovering a little bit of lore about the Fire Giants themselves. They're from an island called the Orinor Islands. You can look down here just south of Chronostein is Orinor. This is where Fire Giants started. There's a story about Orinor itself. There was, it's named that because there was an ancient fire giant named Orinor, so they have a temple there dedicated to him called Nar, the Temple of Nar. They fight, they lose because of a united effort between all the species on the planet of Achelous, the world of Achelous, uniting to fight against them at the Shaded Mountain, which is where they're at right now in the campaign. They're kind of discovering a little bit of lore about that, but it was the orcs who are right now generally an enemy to any other species. But at this point, the orcs were united and fought alongside man. And then you have what's called the Great Growth. So after the Battle of the Shaded Mountain, there's a new peace found across the world. So you have dwarves that, since they helped in the fight, so there's this united deal. Think of kind of the Lord of the Rings, where all the species unite to fight Sauron. Kind of similar with this, with the Shaded Mountain. The dwarves really didn't fight too much in that battle, so it was because of that that the people of Etheris, in particular the capital Alstenburg, the king there, demanded that they do something to aid because of their lack of assistance in the fight. They helped, but they didn't help enough. So that is where, the Frosted Islands up here, that for a while was ran by dwarves, which recently has been lost to pirates. So that the dwarves stay north, and they were told to hold this captive, basically make sure that nothing happens to that. And they've obviously failed as times went on. And then 2700 is a big one. The discovery of magic happens at this point. Um, it's the reason it's found is kind of out of luck and a little bit of knowledge. You have again with the Dark Color Empire falling and civilizations uniting to grow, they will eventually start to understand how the world was seeded, and they seem to believe it was by different means than just an asteroid. They think there had to have been something supernatural about the impact to cause life, and they were right in assuming that. So the craters that are on the world, the meteors that hit, they were actually magical in power. So what would happen is that if you went to these places, studied them, and spent time meditating around them, then you would soak up this magic power. That's when you have the absorption. This is actually a disaster that happens on 2880. They give off magic to people that go up to it and focus on it and learn from it. But eventually, the world soaks up all of it, and there's nothing left. And then in certain places, like in Ifith, you have the expulsion event. The elves were kind of ahead of their time on this. They spent so much time doing this, and soaked up so much power that it caused a massive explosion on their continent, which actually caused the divide between the elves. So there's two powers of elves, and that was not too long ago. That's about 170 years ago. And then you have the rise of dark magic. Now this is all kind of right here, what we're looking at now. This is kind of my campaign with the guys we're in right now. 2990, you have the rise of dark magic. So there's a god in my world called Yexmir. He began to really get a foothold on the planet and started to find warlocks and other clerics that were willing to follow him, and he kind of started a cult. And then you have in 3010 that the faction of magic declares war. So they're openly now declaring war on this cult that is raising up, and this is all leading up to my campaign currently, to what's going on with the guys. If it were not for this, then there wouldn't be the campaign we're in. So essentially, the dark magic cult rose in power to a point that they were really, really strong, and the faction of magic, the good guys, eventually had to make a stand and say, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to start fighting you guys. It was at that point that the dark magic cult, you just call it the cult of Yexmir, the cult of Rhaegorath, whatever that be, they went south, grabbed the orcs, and started fighting with the orcs on their side. And then you have this is recent history. This is the lead up to my campaign right here. Foulheart is the first place that falls. So there's a series in history, or a part in history, called the Crusades of Rhaegorath, who is basically if you look at the top dude, Yexmir, the god, Rhaegorath is his right hand. It is in 3034 he starts a crusade, and his crusade and his intentions were to take over all of Etheris, but start in the central part of it and take over Foulheart, which you can see here. Ulstenburg's the capital, but they start in Foulheart. So these guys come over here, they sack Foulheart in 3034, and then begin to just hit all these places. So they hit Castellor, which is a large coastal capital of the Asturian Empire. They come down, hit Malkovia, Ravenfell, Riven, Lunksk, Void, and then the main capital, Novostoya. That's what the Asturian Empire is named after. So he sacks all of these in a pretty short period of time. And then in 3040, Rhaegorath at this point had reigned for 6 years. The clans of the world unite once again, except for the orcs. They're fighting on their side. And they kill Rhaegorath. In doing so, though, his last breath, he puts a curse on the Asturian Empire. His curse essentially says, this land will die, and I will come back and take the rest. And when he dies, the Estonian Empire turns black. So when you look at this map, you see the black. That's because of his curse. And it is that way currently still in the world that these guys are in this campaign. It is black. There's nothing growing there. It's all dead, and that's because his curse still permeates. And then 3050 is right where the campaign starts for these guys. It starts in Altenheim. Basilin, the dwarf in my campaign, is he is a diplomat from Duesenberg, which is up here. And he is called by the Prince of Altenheim to assemble a team to investigate why the waters in Altenheim are so afflicted with this sickness, this disease. It's causing their people to have open sores, to die in mass numbers. Think black plague, but local. Hasn't spread out wide yet. He assembles 4 other people. One, a Githyanki, who's not from this world. She's actually from a different realm. She is summoned here by some other forces. I don't want to say too much because they might watch this and get it, but she's summoned here by a patron, is what I'll say. She's summoned here by a patron to assist in helping Basilin. Now, she had been sent here early on, about 2 years before Basilin called her to help, but she was sent here with a purpose. This patron told her that you need to go to Achelous, the world of Achelous, and reign there for a while, and then do some things there, live there for the time being, and there'll be a time where you're called to help in something that's bigger than you, bigger than what the world understands. So Basilin sends her a letter, and it's at that point she recognizes this is it. And then Azadeth, which is the elf, he is from Ifith. In particular, this area over here. Let me see here. That thing's huge. This tower. He's from the Tower of Sels Thalor. His family's been guarding this tower for decades. They don't really know why. It's just his family's been inherited this job, I guess. He is very investigative. He's very sneaky. He knows what he's doing. He's well thought out. He's not quick to judge. He's just a smart man, and his power, his ability, his personality is recommended to Basilin. Basilin sends a letter over to Ifith looking for people to aid. They recommend that he sends a letter to somebody that runs the Tower of Sel Solor. And Azadeth is recommended to follow suit. So Azadeth comes over. You have Greg. Greg is an orc. He's a half-orc, technically. He is a human mother and an orc father. He is from the island of Kakua, down here. He moves up. He's actually from there, but he's not born there. He's born in Castelor by his human mother. Basically a bastard baby in a way. Born to a human mother in Castelor, joins what's called the Honest Legion, which is a force of fighters there that fight for the fate of good. Basically, anything that needs help, anybody that's doesn't have the money to afford it, can't afford an army. They're basically a ragtag military force that fights for the purpose of good. No other way to really explain it, but he gets kicked out of the Honest Legion or leaves due to some circumstances that he got himself into. He makes a deal while he was with the Honest Legion, fighting down in Kakua, fighting orcs. He strikes a deal with the Red Dragon. The Red Dragon is in captivity. It's in a cage, and it promises him power if he would free him. And the red dragon also says that he will fly away. He will not affect these people. He will just, if you free him, he will leave. But I will give you great power if you free me. Seeking power and wanting power, he agrees, and is touched by this dragon's claw. This dragon imbues him with this rage-like power. That when he goes into his rage, his chest glows red, his eyes glow red. He almost loses himself. After he frees this dragon, however, the dragon goes on and kills his entire division in the Honest Legion. This causes him great sorrow, and he eventually leaves. However, he still had a good relationship with the leader of the Honest Legion, and it is when Baslin is looking for people, it is recommended to him to send a letter to the Honest Legion because they are good people. And the captain, the leader of the Honest Legion, doesn't have anybody to give, but he recommends that they reach out to Greg because he knows Greg in his heart is a good man. Then you have Sadius. Sadius is from the Ramados Gulf. His people, he's a water genasi. He lives underneath water. His dad, Thaddeus, was actually a part of a small adventuring group. Now, we ran a one-shot, I think a year ago or so. We ran a one-shot where this was kind of the inception of a test of my world to see if I would like running a campaign in this world. But JD is the guy that plays Thaddeus. His dad, Thaddeus, which JD played in my one-shot, it is him and a couple other adventurers, which are people in this campaign now. They went to Fallow Heart after Vragorath had started his crusade. Vragorath at this point was in Navastoya. The one-shot takes place about 3036 or 3037. I can't remember the exact year. They go to Fallow Heart, kill his second in command, and remove the darkness that's covering that city, that town. So Sadius now is highly recommended by the Honest Legion because Thaddeus, his father, was good friends with the Honest Legion captain. So in sending a letter to the Honest Legion, Baslin gets two letters back, or two names back, Greg and the son of Thaddeus, Sadius. So he gets both of them to assist him as well. And that's where you have the group. So you have Baslin, a diplomat from Duesenberg, Zithra, extraplanar species called a Githyanki, who was sent here years before by a patron, telling her that she would have a purpose and she would know what it would be, and that is now. Then you have Azadeth, who guards a tower over there that is a incredibly important monument. He is recommended. And then Greg and Sadius are recommended from the Honest Legion. That, in 3050, is how they all meet in Altenheim. So Baslin gets all the letters. They all say, all right, we're going to help. Seeking adventure. They come here. They actually meet in Tolle Mill because it was the easiest access for all of them to get here. So they just took a boat from the Asturian Empire over to Wollendorf to Tolle Mill. Baslin meets them down there, and then they take a 3-month journey back up to Altenheim. That's where the campaign starts. So they went through essentially where, I'll give you a brief summary. They start in Altenheim. They investigate this water issue. They find out rather quickly it is more than a water issue. That there's some kind of curse or magic being used to taint the water. They find a little pendant with a religious symbol on it. They don't realize what it is right now. They take it back to the prince, tell him what they found. He recommends that they go to the city of Grabenstein, which is where the Pope is, Pope Murek. He runs the Church of Otar. It's called the Otarian religion. It is there where he has a vast library of tomes and scrolls that have tons of information. And he would be the guy that would be able to tell them what this pendant is, what it means. On their way there, they quickly discover that this water issue is much more than it seemed to be, and that this symbol um, signifies uh, much more than just some kind of small religion. It is the cult, the religion of the dark magic, in particular the cult of Yexmir. So all throughout their journey, they stop in Wallstein. Wallstein actually gets burned to the ground. It is here they discover there's a cult underneath Wallstein, hiding information. There's a journal in there that tells them of some locations of other things. One of them is about a tome, how important this tome is. So they eventually go to Duesenberg. In Duesenberg, they do some things. They find out there is some doppelgangers. It is in Duesenberg where Baslin, his leader, his mayor of that city, who he was second in command of, is actually a doppelganger. His body has been consumed or killed, and they took the form of his body and have been running a puppet government out of his city, allowing the doppelgangers, which you later find out is a part of this cult, allowing them to make some moves all across the kingdom that they would have otherwise not been able to do. It's at this point where the group starts to really start freaking out about doppelgangers. If you watch some of the streams going forward, more than likely when they meet somebody, they always cut the hand of that person. The reason they do that is because doppelganger blood is not red, it's blue. So every time they meet a high power, higher up, or a king, or a mayor, or somebody that has some pull in the kingdom, they always say, "Let me cut your hand," to make sure. It is here in Duesenberg where they were just a ragtag group of nobodies that they actually go on a trip to save a dragon. And they go all the way to this point right here. The dragon is taken over by this dark magic, and they have the choice of killing it or trying to rid it of this this curse. And they actually do really well, put a ton of effort into it, and they rid the dragon of the curse, gaining it as an ally going forward, which will be huge for them. It's at that point they go to Landhaus. They give themselves a name, the Guardians of Achelous. And in Landhaus, this is where they really make their claim to fame. Not only do they free a dragon, but in Landhaus there's what they call a water monster. They call it this great beast, this unknown horror that lives in the Lake Alton. It goes all the way up, and it's stopping trade from happening. So they go there and they find it's a cursed dragon turtle. They kill it, and when they go back to Landhaus, they're heroes. So they throw up a statue of the Guardians of Achelous, and this is when their name starts really getting known. This is also when Greg's past gets a little revealed. Him being in the Honest Legion and doing what he did, it was inevitable that people would find out that he was responsible. So there is a association in Alstenburg called the Bronze Wolf Association. They're mercenaries and assassins. They're hired to go find Greg and kill him. It's in Landhaus where they fight a guy, or they find Greg and try to assassinate him. I kind of put Greg through the ringer here for like 4 or 5 sessions. He was terrified he was going to get hit by arrows. I mean, it was quite a while there. Every time he went forward anywhere, there's assassins sitting in bushes. He would go to taverns. There was people watching him. Nonetheless, they eventually kill the Bronze Wolf Association assassins that are after him. They leave one guy alive. Greg cuts off his finger, gives the assassin his finger, and says, "Take it back to your people. Tell them you've killed me. This is proof. We're letting you live this one out. If you tell them, however, I'm alive, we will kill you." They leave that guy, and nobody knows what happens yet. They eventually make their way to Gryffindor. This is where they find out the doppelganger issue is even bigger. They go north here and find out there's a cave full of doppelgangers, and they're taking kids and people from the city. They go south. This is where the journal tells them there's a cave south of Gryffindor that is a hold point where orcs and this cult are held up at. And there's a tome in there. This kind of kicks off the campaign big for the guys. They find this tome. They find out its significance later on. But it is one of 4 tomes. And all together, these 4 tomes, when the right person reads the incantations, they can summon Vragorath back to the world. And that is what Vragorath is trying to do. That's why the cult and the orcs are uniting right now. They're trying to acquire all of these tomes to summon him back to take over the world. But they find this all out when they go to Gravenstein. It is here. They meet the Pope. The Pope tells them what's going on. He tells them the brief history about the tomes, what they mean, what they signify. They head south, down, following a vision that Azadeth had of a cave that he needed to meditate in to find some more information about himself. They go here. They go through this vision. They kill some fire giants. He gets a reward. And then our in-person session, we went to Vollendorf, and then they went to the mines. That's kind of where we picked up tonight. You saw a brief part of that. They went to the mines with the intention to just clear it, because there had been a side quest in Gravenstein that said, hey, we're losing miners in Burrowfell mines. Every time we send miners down to grab ore and materials, they go missing, and we don't hear back from them. Could you go look into that? We'll pay you gold. Well, when they go to Gravenstein, they meet 2 dwarves that run blacksmith shops, and they say the same thing. Hey, we're missing ore, and we're missing our miners. Can you go down into the mines and check? So they decided this was significant enough, they'll go check. Well, in our in-person session, they go in here. Unknowingly, they had chose, of all the side quests they could choose for a one-shot, they chose this one, which actually was more than just a side quest. There was another tome here. And they find the second tome. Well, in finding the second tome, the cave collapses behind them. The mine does. And they have to find their way throughout. So they go underground, following a tunnel, taking a cart to a city called Gultherum, which is ran by underground dwarves who used to be Kandarian dwarves. They used to live up here. But 200 years before, they migrated down into this mountain. They help the king out by killing the big worm. The king says, hey, I promise you, if you kill this worm, I'll give you the location of some secret that we were told to never tell anybody. It's been a long time since that happened, so the king thought, I'm going to tell them anyways. It's been long enough. They've helped me kill this worm. I'll tell them the location of this treasure that we had to hide. The treasure is weapons of light. So these weapons of radiance, they're created by Otarn and Iracel. They're weapons created with the intention to fight Yexmir. And they were cast down to the world of Achelous to help during the Crusades against Vragorath. So those, after Vragorath died, the tomes and the weapons and the shackles, all these items were scattered amongst the world, given to people to hide, and then the information about who it was given to was lost to time, hoping that no one would ever find these items because nobody knows where they're at. You can't trace them. Well, what's happened now with generations of families and history and rumors, these things have kind of started coming up again. So the Guardians of Achelous have found out that the Mount Vengeance and the Greyspawn Mountains up here holds the Shackles of Radiance, which are made to hold Vragorath to limit his power. The Weapons of Radiance are told to them by the king that they hid them in the Shaded Mountains. That's where this campaign tonight was about. They rode a cart all the way from here down here. It took them 3 days to get here. Once they clear this, they'll get the Weapons of Radiance. And then now they have 2 tomes. Now, in the one shot, they found out that one of the tomes is up here in Kentigern Keep. And then the mages in Vollendorf, as well as the Pope, told them there's another tome in Ravenfell. They currently have 2 of the tomes. They need all 4. And then they don't need the weapons or the shackles, but it would be helpful. So that's where they're at now. The campaign's getting real close to ending because they have they're on the path to getting the weapons. They can go back and get the shackles rather easily. And then the island here is close, and Kentigern's not too far. So they're right on the precipice of beating this campaign. It'll probably wrap up in about a month and a half, maybe 2 months. But yeah, that's everything. The whole history of everything. Like I said, you guys are here. Then you guys went all the way around here, all the way up here, and ended up like here. And you guys' goal is you're eventually going to be down here for your campaign. You guys will wrap all the way around to here. And that's where you guys will find information about what you can do to help or what your plans are next. But you guys are on the same timeline as them. So, you know, at some point, your characters might bleed into theirs. Yeah, you guys' groups probably wouldn't get along. They'd probably kill you. If you guys did meet, you guys would be dead. You guys wouldn't stand a chance. Because you guys are level 2 and they're almost to level 11. So, they could probably blow your boat up in 1 turn. But yeah, you guys' style of play, compared to the way they do it, is different. Yeah, it is pretty cool. That's why I wanted to run you guys in my world. Because eventually, you know, it's always cool to have a moment where, I like this personally, having a moment where you guys can just get pieces of the lore from my other campaign. Like you guys being down here in the south, if you're on your way to Ifith, you guys might hear from another, you know, mercenary ship or a pirate. Hey, did you hear about what's going on over there? And, you know, I might drop a name. To you guys, that might not mean anything, but to me, it's like this cool closure that I get. The ability to be able to blend stuff is really, really cool. But you guys will have, I mean, their history, their story is obviously really fleshed out. But you guys, once our campaign ends, which I'm hoping should be in May, that'll have an awesome lore to it itself. Like there'll be a ton of lore in you guys' small little campaign that makes world impacts. Like the lore from you guys' campaign, how it ends, however it will end, I don't know yet, because you guys will decide it really. That will have impacts on how my world is shaped going forward. So even though that little campaign you have, like our one shot that I had with them in Foulheart, ended up being substantial later on, you guys' little 3-month campaign, 4-month campaign, that will be a point in history. Like when I go to my timeline, that'll be in my timeline. And there will be things in the world that are forever changed because of that little campaign we're doing with you guys. And then if we start another campaign, if we don't, we don't. But if we do, we can play off of that, or we can go to another area. There's always something you can do. That's why I like keeping everything in the same world. Because you build a story that way, and your players feel invested. If I was to put you guys in a different campaign every time we played, like if you guys were my players, like I've played with those guys in our big campaign a ton. But if I was to run like the guys I'm with now, if we did a different campaign every other year in a different book, it's, for me personally, it's hard to get invested in that kind of play style because I like seeing when a campaign ends. That's the hardest part about playing D&D. When a campaign ends, what do you do? Like, you have to say, all right, my campaign ends. What does your character do? He goes off and he starts a family. The end. It's almost anticlimactic. I want my character I've built for years. In some of our worlds, I've played characters for years. I want at the end of that time frame to be able to say, my character did this, and this is what he's doing now. And if I played later on, a little callback to that is like, wow, okay, that's really cool. With this world will be the world I play all of my campaigns in. So going forward, 5-6 years from now, I hope to have a massive, expansive world full of lore that was created by players and not by me. I have the base lore, but from that point forward, it's all character driven. But I'm getting off here now. My throat is killing me. I know you can probably tell, but